Hi
Hello,
guys,
hi.
welcome.
I can't hear you. You're
Yeah, yeah,
at
now you
a
can, yeah.
distance.
So
Okay,
we'll
perfect.
wait for 5 minutes for everyone to join. I guess we have like 10 people who
Hmm.
joined in already. So we'll wait for 5 minutes till everyone
Okay.
joins and then we'll begin.
ठीक है ठीक है I'll wrap up something. I'm here only. ठीक है Just let me know.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So till people join in, I'll just introduce Beyond to every one of you all and what Beyond basically does. So Beyond So the Beyond is an initiative I started, and we are basically a design community in the design studio, which is in the building, and we're a bunch of college students who are starting this. And to put in more forward, we'll be starting with content and different sessions, offline events. We'll be getting speakers. We will be charging a bit of mostly free events, which will be online, and then charging a bit of minimum amount for the offline events. But our original goal is to like create a network, provide key information which is useful to everyone. So like fields like cinematography, typography, all of these are skills which I feel all of the streams require, like very basic visual needs. So that is something I feel that everyone requires. So those are some fields we'll be touching upon uh, specifically, and then there will be stream specific things as well. So that is in bit about basic, and we'll wait for 2 minutes more, and once everyone joins, we'll start the session. Till then, y'all can let me know how was your day, how excited are you. If you have any questions for Gajesh, you can add those in the chat as well. Yeah, I guess we can start now. So
Perfect.
Today we have with us Gajesh. Gajesh is the founder of Studio Modak, a design studio based in India, with a bachelor's degree from NID Ahmedabad, and he's also been a visiting faculty at IIT Delhi and Oxford University, along with previously being the design lead at Fool. He's designed for many clients such as Unilever, Pepsi, the Ambanis, Hyundai Cars, Borosil, Netflix, and the list is endless. So, handing it over to Gajesh to start this session with his introduction and continuing on the topic.
Okay. Thank you, Ratwa. Uh, I think I can't see who all joined, so I will just continue with what I have planned, right? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect. Hello, everyone. Namaste. My name is Gajesh Mitkari. I am the founder of Studio Modak. Uh, very frankly speaking, I haven't prepared very well of what I'm going to talk about because, again, like I think what the ideology that I generally follow is let my work speak for itself because whatever I work on, whatever research I do, whatever we all work on projects as a studio, we try to put in as much heart as we can in all these projects. So today I'm just not just going to talk about projects, but today I'm going to talk about something which is very close to me. That is basically design in India, uh, Indian design culture, the art culture, and whatever we have had since all these years, and what is happening right now. How can we revive it? How can we relook at it? Reviving is not actually the right word, I'll say. Relooking at it is the right term that I would like to use here. Uh, Basically, yeah, that's all I'll say. So, I'm also pretty young. So, if you're expecting a lot of gyan or knowledge out of me, I'll just say that I'm just going to share whatever I've learned till now. my observation, a few opinions that I find, and then how are we relooking at all these things, the Indian design industry, through what we do at Studio Modak and through what I've been doing since last 5 years. I think that's all. Anything else, guys? I mean, what happened, Rutwa? Am I audible? ओके 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 यार इधर ना ऑडियंस दिखता नहीं है तो समझ में नहीं आ रहा है मुझे कि मैं कंटिन्यू करूँ बोलना कि नहीं करूँ बट इट्स फाइन आई गेस लाइक आई एम वेरी यूज्ड टू लाइक speaking to people in like a physical setting. But anyways, what I'm going to talk about today is basically you all know about certain incidents which happened recently. The Prada Kolhapuri Chappal incident and the Louis Vuitton exhibition or the ramp walk. I have a few more examples which I want to relook at. And I also want to give like a very, I don't know, like a statement today. We have this very interesting decor in our studio. It's called a lantern, and basically, all of you might have seen it in old movies. I don't know what the age group of people who have joined here right now is, but it looks something of this sorts. This. So what I'm going to see today is basically just in a few years, 1 2 years, maybe even this will be relooked at by Western designers or Western brands, and then we'll be complaining again that okay, another design stolen by Western people, another idea stolen by Western people. Uh, so yeah, before you know other brands outside India relook at things which we should be relooking at. I feel like we should actually rethink of how we are approaching our design practices, and that is the topic for today that I'm going to talk about. Starting with basically I'm going to share my screen. Basically, the recent incident of Prada Kolhapuri Chappals. Everybody knows about it, but I'm going to share a few more instances which happened back in like just 5 6 years back, which happened recently, which maybe we did not take like that seriously as seriously we took the Prada Kolhapuri Chappals. And then I'm going to talk about a few projects that I worked on when I was in college, when I was younger, when I just started out, just like most of you who are starting out, or most of you are students. And then just I think one or two projects where I talk about a process. So it's going to be like a long presentation. Again, I'm going to explain the flow again. First is we're going to relook at the kind of brands from outside which picked up ideas or products from our own culture and then reintroduce them to across the world, which we should have done a long time back. Then I'm gonna talk about my work, my project from back in the day, from without looking backwards. So now that I look at the kind of work that I've done back in college or back during when COVID happened, when I was sitting here in the same room, I feel like the kind of work that I do right now, I have always been interested in the same kind of work. It's just I think my skills, the way I look at things, the way maybe I design has changed a lot because I met so many people. So yeah, that's the flow. And then one project, one like a commercial project by Studio Modak, where I talk about the process and I also show you the final product that we design. So yeah, I think I'm gonna start. I hope you all screen. Uh, Rutwa, I won't be able to see you or anybody. So if there's any lag or any delay, yeah, yeah, tell me. Perfect. Perfect. ठीक है. So I'm gonna share my screen. I won't be able to see you, Rutwa. If there's any question or actually. So it's pretty sad what exactly happened. But this is not the first instance when Western designers or Western brands got inspired by something which is made in India, which actually has a GI tag. We are going to get into GI tags also, why they are important and why the government of India actually makes them important for local artisans like these. Another incident, this is back in like 2017 or 2018. I had shared about this when it happened also. But back then, I don't think I had so much work and I didn't have so much, platform to talk about these things. But I'm going to revive it, like relook at this topic again. But there's this German company uh, and basically what they did is this is like a plate made out of leaves, plant leaves. So of course biodegradable. And the brand name is actually Leaf Republic, as you can see here. It's a German company. Apparently, they launched in 2018, and they have been working on this idea, this groundbreaking idea, since 2 years. So basically, since the beginning of 2016. But if you come from India, if you're an Indian, you know this is in every culture actually. But this is called a patravadi in our Marathi culture. We sit down to have food, and if you go to the southern region, there's banana leaf is more prominent there. I've traveled across India, but I've seen uh, one way or another where people have been using tree leaves to as a plate or as a bowl. So this has been there in India. The brand never mentioned that the inspiration came from India. So it's very funny how this has been happening. This keeps on happening. But we, as Indian designers or Indian design industry, always get inspired by the Western idea of design or the Western idea of minimalism and all these concepts. So yeah, this is another instance. Then another thing is pretty interesting. There's a brand from America which is called Scotty Potty. Very interesting name. Now, I'm going to use the term, I'm really sorry. Sandas. We all, it's potty. We all go for potty every day. Basically, there are two types of seating arrangements that people have in their houses. One is Western and one is Indian. Most of the people nowadays have Western seating in cities. In rural areas, or if you go to more secluded areas, of course there are no toilets, but wherever there is in rural areas, we have the Indian setting. Now, if you read more about the human anatomy, how the human digestion system works, you'll get to know that it's squatting position is always better for your gut, for your health, in terms of everything.
Yeah.
And that's why if you ever face any gut issues, even your doctor will recommend you at some point that you should use a Indian setting for getting your weight out early in the morning. Basically, the same concept was introduced as this tool by this American brand. This is again back in 2017-18. And the idea is this is actually just a tool. And what you do is, if you see there is an opening here, there are different types of designs here. But how it works is basically this. You use this tool with a Western, like a seating arrangement. It is stackable. Basically, you push it inside and it kind of attaches with your seat like a puzzle piece. And this is the seating arrangement that they are providing. So normally you sit like this, which is not really a good gut-friendly seating arrangement. So what this does is basically elevate, and this is very very closer to how we have the Indian setting in our houses. So yeah, and they reintroduced this. You all can see the prices. It's $45 per seat. It's just a stool. It's not even anything else. And we have had similar kind of products in India since a very long time. And if you actually ever get to visit a hospital or anything, you'll find arrangements like these for elder people because they can't sit on an Indian setting because their joints, their legs are very weak. So we have had products like these. It's just this American brand actually reintroduced it. So this is another instance where the practices that we have had since so many years rebranded like this, and they are selling this at such a, I don't know, man. This is a horrible price. So this is another example. Then we come down to another industry. Again, fashion industries have been doing this since a very long time. We talked about Prada. This is like a lifestyle accessory. This is lifestyle. The German firm, the Leaf one, is a lifestyle. Then we get back to again fashion, Balenciaga. This
So,
was like Balenciaga. Yeah.
adding to your topic, I feel that these are great examples to show people in India that we need not always get inspired or follow the European standards, the Japanese standards, the Russian standards, and we can also
Hmm.
stick to our roots, authenticity, and make so many products that our forefathers have been using since a long time, which we have forgotten about or the recent generation has forgotten about.
Exactly, beautifully put. And I'm gonna add more to that, Ratwa. There are another many more instances like these where basically we have so much knowledge or so much practical knowledge in architecture, in design, in art, and practicality of everything. Plus, most of our solutions are pretty cheap. I'm gonna talk about another example. I'm really sorry I'm diverting a little, but
Yeah, yeah,
basically
no
I'm gonna
worries.
talk about architecture. I come from Maharashtra. It's called the land of forts because, of course, Shivaji Raje is from this land. And why I'm bringing this topic is not just because I'm proud about where I come from, but about a practical solution that this community of people gave long time back. Now, Shivaji Raje was here 400, 500, 100 years back. Now, if you look at his forts, if you look at forts across Delhi or across the northern India, and if you look at the forts here in Maharashtra or even the southern region, the Deccan region, you'll see a stark difference. The forts in the northern region are made out of sandstone, red sandstone, marble, everything, and they're still very intact, very nicely made. There's like marble inlay work in there. There's gemstone work in there. A lot of forts have metal work also, where we have gold, we have silver, we have very rich metals. That was not the case here in Maharashtra or in the Deccan region. Now, how the forts used to be here was they heavily used black basalt rock. Now, black basalt is a very readily available material in the there's like a mountain region here in Maharashtra also, and a lot of mountains, like smaller mountains in the southern part as well. So, the readily available material here in our region is a black basalt rock, which is like a simply like a black stone. You'll see these rocks, the temples here, if you ever visit Maharashtra or even the southern region. So what they used to do is they used to use this rock which was readily available in the local region. What it used to do was, पहली बात तो it used to reduce your local transportation costing, because of course you're dealing with rock, you're dealing with building material. Now whenever you import sandstone or you import marble and everything, these are rocks, these are stones, they're heavy. So importing duty, the costing of all that was extremely high. So of course the pricing for which like the red fort was made, उतने प्राइसिंग में महाराष्ट्र में या फिर इन द साउदर्न रीजन 10-12 फोर्ट्स बन जाते थे, बिकॉज हम लोग रेडीली अवेलेबल जो मटेरियल होता था उसको यूज करते थे. नाउ अलॉन्ग विद द ब्लैक बसोल्ट रॉक, you have your bricks made out of the mud or the soil that you have here, the red soil, the black soil, etc. And to जिसको लेपन बोलते हैं basically in our region, to decorate the walls we used to use chuna, we used to use like the locally available natural colors and pigments. So what it used to do is, in the time when a building like a fort like in the northern region used to take like 10, 12, 15, 20 years, even more at some point, uh, we used to make all these forts, these kind of forts, like 10, 15 forts within a year. And that's why when the Raja, he was very young, he could build so many forts at just a very young age. Again, coming back, the same ideology, this understanding of local material, reducing the costing, using all these things to make something long lasting has always been there. And it's not like we have to get inspired by the western design philosophies and everything. Of course a lot of factors affect these things: the colonization, the capitalist society that we have today, the brands which are very much celebrated like Balenciaga and all these. We feel that okay, design is only good or great or practical in the western countries, but actually India has more practical solutions, more cost friendly solutions, and more beautiful solutions, I'll say. And that's why, if you look at all the brands across India, all the designers across the world, I'll say, everybody at this point is kind of at some point not getting inspired by India, by the way. I'm going to rephrase it. Stealing a lot of things from the Indian ideology or the practices that we follow here. And I'll be as upfront about these things as I can. So, coming back, but anyway, before that, Rutwa, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, so I feel it's very nicely put in. Like, I'll give one more example. I know it is not out there, it is a project by one of our
Yeah,
faculties. So, I recently talked to one of
yeah.
our professors yesterday, and he's been working on bamboo bicycles. So, replacing the metal frame with
Hmm.
bamboo to bring in sustainability. And then he
Hmm.
also received some grants from the government stuff. So, again, it shows us how we've been dependent on foreign
Hmm.
material so much,
Wonderful.
wherein our
See, that's what I'm
material is
talking
so
about.
strong and
And see,
reusable.
yeah, exactly. And bamboo, like bamboo is, so we are working with, we have this another client who heavily grows bamboo all over India. Uh, Bamboo is actually very cheap to grow, by the way. Bamboo has multiple uses. आप उससे खत बना सकते हो आपके फार्मिंग के लिए. I have a farming background in my family, so you can make really good compost for your farms using bamboo. Of course, products are endless. You can make endless products out of bamboo. Not just decor items, by the way. You can make even cloths using bamboo. We have socks we made for another client made out of bamboo. And that's the thing. Bamboo is so much readily available, not just in Assam or in the northeastern region, but all over India, and it's very easy to grow. By the way, it grows like almost like 1 or 2 feet every day. Every day, I'm saying. Huh? So, yeah, coming back to that same thing, I'm really glad that he's doing this. There are multiple brands and multiple people who are kind of getting into it. But yeah, we'll talk about all these things. But I'm gonna get back to this thing so that we don't, have a long conversation.
Yeah.
But Balenciaga. Uh, so Balenciaga launched this bag just 2 years back in collaboration with IKEA. They have had a range of bags, but this one was the most talked about. And of course, these are all inspired by the tote bags that our mothers or grandmothers used to carry vegetables and groceries.
Hmm.
It was basically inspired by that. The quality is not that great. Okay, if you feel like इसके अंदर कुछ lining होगा, it must be like a lot of compartments and everything. No, it's just a tote bag, and you can see the price here. And even the way uh, our even the way media outlets and everybody keeps on talking about these brands is actually awesome. It's infuriating because of course this is not something new, this is not something groundbreaking, this is not something which can change humankind forever or in any way. This has been happening since a very long time. So this is basically a part of PR only, by the way. These are paid promotions by all these brands. We'll talk about PR also someday. That's a long topic altogether. But again, a theli, we call it a theli, rebranded by a very celebrated brand across the world, and priced at a price which is not affordable for not just the 1%, but I'll say the 0.05% of the population. But yeah, moving on to the next one. Then Louis Vuitton, we have had plastic bags, the thicker ones, since a very long time. The Indian government banned plastic bags a few years back, but ever since we've had plastic bags, we have multiple kinds of plastic bags, not just the जिसको पन्नी बोलते हैं जो एकदम पतला सा होता है, but thicker ones also, the transparent ones. तो उसी से इंस्पायर्ड होके Louis Vuitton inspired a lot of handbags, and these are very expensive handbags. There was a range of handbags since 2000 to 2022 or something, and you might have seen something of this sorts. In fact, most of you might even have something of this sorts in your homes.
Yeah.
It's just their logos are just pasted all over it. And let's agree, let's all of us agree to one thing, that these are not pretty, these are ugly. So multiple ideas like these, and the fashion world is crazy about this, by the way. We feel like this is groundbreaking. So multiple, I'm gonna send all these links to Rutwa. Rutwa, if you can just make them,
Yeah.
make these links up to them.
Yeah.
I
I'll
think
compile a doc and forward it to everyone who registered.
perfect, perfect, fantastic. Okay, this is another one. Then another, coming back to another lifestyle accessory that we have had since again ages. A lot of you might have tried or solo trips or just going on a picnic in your school. Just in general trip across India, like you cross these highways, you go to these villages, the rural areas, and you might have had wonderful food at dhabas. I'm very sure most of you have had at least, once food at dhaba, any dhaba. The speciality of a dhaba is dhaba mein na aise there are no tables and chairs like we have in restaurants. They have this another thing called charpai, and charpai is not something only used in dhabas. It has been there. Uh, People have been using this in villages also, in rural areas also, and in some in some scenarios, even in urban cities, somebody who comes from a background of a village. So my father and my mother, they both grew up in a village. So we have a charpai at our home. We keep it on our terrace, and we sit there sometimes. Why I'm talking about these things is charpai was never actually a luxury thing for us. Charpai is basically a replacement if you can't afford a bed, because the beds are very expensive. A basic bed setting without like a container on the bottom, just like आपके चार पैर and the top, can cost you 10,000 to 12,000 minimum, I'll say. ठीक है? That too with like a cheapest wood, the mango wood or any other wood. I'm not even talking about teak wood or rosewood or anything of that sorts. So charpai is like a cheaper option. It saves a lot of space also because it's foldable and all these things. Why I'm mentioning so much about charpai is because Westerners or the Western designers or brands got inspired by that again, and they introduced this bench charpai. I'm just putting a eBay link here. There are multiple and other examples also across all over the website. Okay, you'll see them: handmade rustic bench or bench Indian charpoy, Indian handmade Klimbull, jute rug, piano bench, and they have basically rebranded it in the most interesting ways you can think of. Uh, but again, like they saw this concept somewhere, maybe in Rajasthan or somewhere in the northern region only. This is across. This is actually spread across India. This is not a very specific region specific thing. Uh, this is not just it, by the way. Uh, they have done this on top of that. They have pillow covers inspired by women from India, from, if I'm not wrong, from the Kutchi or Rajasthani region only. If you look at their jewelry, and you all can see the price here.
Again,
If you
adding
go
on to
look down,
this in a bit,
yeah,
we'd also
yeah,
visited Udaipur and all of these locations last year, and we'd done all of these
yeah,
charpai crafts and then wood carving and all of the crafts we looked there. And it is considered as a
correct,
dying craft. Like these craftsmen don't want their children to get into the same thing as well now. Whereas big brands are copying this and bringing it into the modern generation. So that is a huge problem I feel which we are facing.
exactly. And it's pretty sad if you think about it, because I feel like their generation might have been working on this. I'll tell you why all these things are very important. Like, see, generational thing, a talent or something, an art form. When it comes through generation, it's not just about the talent anymore. It's about a lot of other things also. The nuances of that particular thing. I'm going to talk about again a little diverting from the topic, but this is very important to discuss. I don't know how many people are there, but I'm very sure some like either at least one or two of them might have a background in art or in craft or in music, and if possible, they might have picked it up from their grandparent or their parents. So it might be a second or third generation. Now, what happens is when there is a generation thing which is happening in craft or art or any of these things. For example, my own example as well. I got into teaching very early on in my life, and I've been touch wood. I've been uh, termed as a decent teacher by most of the people. The reason for that is because both my parents were teachers. They're retired now. My grandfather and my grandmother were teachers. I come from a family of teachers actually, so it comes naturally to me at some point because I've been seeing them. Now it's not just about teaching in this case, or in someone else's case. It's not just about music or playing an instrument or singing or making an art form. It's about a lot of other little nuanced things, right? If I was the first generation teacher from my family, I would have had my own techniques of teaching. Generally, what happens with me is I carry on a certain technique of or a certain style of teaching, a body of teaching. The way I teach, let's say whoever is interning with me in my studio or my students also, it's not a technique that you would see here like in modern schools. It's an amalgamation of a young teacher fused in, like blended in with somebody like my father who has a 50 years of experience of teaching, or somebody of my grandfather's calibre who has a 70-80 years of teaching experience. उनकी टेक्निक्स काफ़ी अलग होती थी. सो वो मैं सीख के आया हूँ. तो उसमें क्या होते हैं, जो छोटे छोटे नुआंसेस होते हैं ना, दे हेल्प यू इन अ लॉट ऑफ अदर वेज. द वे my student might be performing in the industry at some point is very different from how a student who just joined like a modern school might be performing. And that is where it's very important that we carry on these traditions or these heritages. Now, coming back to Ritwa's point, where these artisans are feeling like they want to give up, the reason for that is they're not getting the fair. These kind of things require a lot of time, a lot of patience, and it's understandable. Some of these artists might be making this kind of a charpai uh, within a day because they have been working on these things since so many years. It's not just about making that thing in a particular timeline. It's about how skilled they are at this point. So you're not paying for how much time they're putting in, you're paying for the heritage they have had in their past. And it's very important that our generation brings this topic in light now. Now that Rutwa knows about it, I'm very sure so many of you who have come here from a design or an art school might have talked about so many such artists or artisans. So it's very important that we revive it. As a young artist, as a young designer like me, I can always work with Western brands. I can always work with the giant corporates and work on things which will pay me so much more as compared to how what I'm doing right now. But why I'm doing this right now is because I'm seeing that it is lost potential. It is years of hard work and dedication and passion which we are kind of looking away from and getting inspired by things which doesn't have any soul. But yeah, coming back, it's a long topic, of course.
So,
Uh,
we have one question from
yeah,
Krisha. She's asking that
yeah.
has any major Indian brand tried to reimagine and introduce a whole new line of Indian products, not luxury but affordable ones that actually look good?
Very interesting. I'll be very honest, no, none. They do it once in a while for one of their SKUs or one of their products. There are some brands who do it during their gifting. We try to do that at Fool. We have Fool is still trying to take it forward with all their campaigns and everything. Uh, but again, it's very commercialized. At Fool also, the target audience that we have had was urban millennials, people who could afford things, people who could afford something uh, as minimum as 1.5K or 2K or something of that sorts. Even the incense is very expensive at Fool. So there are very less brands who are doing that right now because you know why? Because we always focus on the short-term capital gain that we can get through all these projects or everything that we can do. We are gone are the brands which built legacy. 10, 12 years back, 20 years back, we have had brands like those which had a legacy. And I'll give you examples of these kind of brands also. They're not just in the FMCG or retail industry, they're spread across. Doordarshan, everything that they used to do, from their talk shows to their movies to their serials, everything was so much, so much nicely done with so much passion. They created a legacy. Even now, even if somebody, any one of you who have never heard the Doordarshan tune, if you hear it now, somehow you'll feel nostalgic, even though you have never ever interacted with any show, any serial from Doordarshan. That is the power of building a legacy. None of the brands today are doing that. I'll give you another example. If let's say tomorrow Zomato or Swiggy or a modern brand like that, shuts out of nowhere, let's say because of capital, because of campaigns, because of anything, any reason, after 2 years you won't remember that brand. You know why? Because there's no legacy. There's a problem statement. They have solved that problem statement in some way or another. Of course, that problem statement is solved, but there are multiple other channels of problem statements also which they have created. And these problem statements involve like delivery partners ka lifestyle, how ethical their practices are or not. That is a different topic altogether. But why it is not happening, Krishna and Rutwa, is because none of the brand today is focusing on creating a legacy of sorts. Everybody is trying to have a short term gain, a capital gain. कि मैं आज प्रोडक्ट लॉन्च करूँ, मुझे महीने के एंड तक 3-4 लाख या फिर a certain amount I want to earn. There is no long term goal. कि after 1 year what's gonna happen? After 2 years what my goal is. So once we kind of solve that problem statement, we kind of as designers and creators convince brands that you should always focus on legacy. And only then people would want you to stay there. People would want you to, keep on doing what you're doing. Another example, I don't know if you guys have tried this thing called bites or not. It used to be a snack. एक ऐसा पिलो शेप का बाइट नाम का स्नैक होता था,
Yeah,
उसके
yeah,
अंदर
yeah.
चॉकलेट का फिलिंग होता था.
Yes, yes, yes.
Have you ever tried it? I've
Yeah,
tried.
yeah. We get it here in our mess
Fantastic.
as well
It
in
was,
college.
but it might not be from Cadbury. It is some another brand.
Yeah.
I'm very sure. Then there was another brand called Hippo. Hippo का भी chips का ही होता था, and basically they have had Kailash Kher as their brand ambassador. वो जिन्होंने there is this song of Kailash Kher called प्यारी माँ मेरी माँ अम्मा. That song they made it into an advertisement, and that became like a huge success. because Ogilvy and all these agencies were involved in there. They created a legacy. Now all of us miss that brand. We miss Bites, we miss Hippo because they created a legacy. आजकल के चिप्स के ब्रांड कल को जाके बंद होता है ना, आपको नहीं याद आएगा. That legacy nobody is creating. So I hope this kind of answers your question in some way or another, Krishna.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I'll just
go ahead.
say that we have a lot of questions coming in now, so we will complete with your examples and the process of a studio. And the last 15 to 30 minutes we'll
Yeah,
keep only for questions.
perfect. That sounds better. तो अभी मैं तुरंत जाते I'll just continue.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, because these conversations, then one thing or another keeps on adding, and then it becomes like a long conversation.
yeah,
But moving on to the next one, haldi ka doodh yaar, turmeric latte. I talk about this in every presentation I ever, wherever I go. So this, all of us know, Starbucks launched it. We're crazy about Starbucks. I don't know why. The coffee is not good. The ambience at some point is okayish now because there are multiple other themed cafes which are doing wonderful now. And everything that Starbucks is doing nowadays is just mediocre. It's not good. It's just a legacy that they have built over the years through their branding, through their name. Everything else is not just working. So they introduced this thing called turmeric latte. After Starbucks, a lot of Western brands introduced this thing called turmeric latte. What exactly it is? The same thing. Your mother, when she puts haldi in doodh along with some elaichi and sugar if you want it, it becomes turmeric latte. That's it. Simple concept. उसको rebrand कर दिया गया. It costs like they'll charge you 500, 600, 700 rupees at some point for this. So we've had this since a very long time. So this is another example. Then Dior had this show 2 years back in Mumbai. Yeah. So the show was basically wanted to spotlight, by the way, the extraordinary craftsmanship of India's artisans. If you see what they're wearing, how they're styled, I don't see any craftsmanship here. If you see how the visual merchandising has been done, I don't see any craftsmanship here. I just see like a tacky, a very not well balanced, a very not complementing the background structure in any way kiosk setup. I see a very randomized phoolo ki rangoli on both sides. I see diyas which we don't use here everywhere in India. I see chappals which could have been the Kolhapuri chappals or the mojadis from Rajasthan. I can just see a very Western influenced, a very white influenced show which kind of shouted, "We want attention from everybody all across the world." I don't see representation at all in any of these spaces. Now I understand there are certain limitations when you do a fashion show, like a show of that sort. The models are not supposed to showcase a certain kind of expression, but in terms of how their skin is, in terms of what kind of jewelry they are wearing, in terms of how their hair type is, I feel like a lot could have been done. Because if you're talking about extraordinary craftsmanship of India's artisans, I don't see any of that here. And that infuriates me a lot. And we have many examples like these. Many. So, yeah, that was it for the first part of the presentation, where I talk about how Western designers and brands are kind of trying to fool you into thinking that they're rebranding, but they are not doing that. They're just doing the surface level work, which you all, I think, have been doing since you are an aspirant or you have been doing when you are in first year of your college. There's so much more that you can do. So now coming back to the work that I've been doing since I was a student. Now, why I want to talk about the work that I've been doing since I was a student is because I want all of you to see what kind of mistakes I've made, what kind of bad project documentation I've done, what kind of horrible briefs I've picked up, and what kind of failed projects that I've never was able to, finish. And then how it is now, how I worked with the brands that I've worked with, what I'm doing with them, and how I always see that there is always potential to grow, there is always potential to work on more things and do more things. Genuinely speaking, I feel like I just want to keep on creating, I just want to keep on making things. Not looking at how they are going to perform, what they are going to do. I just want to put where I can come from on a platform it deserves to be on. So yeah, coming back to my work, in second year, we have had this brief from our institution, from our college for an assignment, where basically we were supposed to relook at an old art form or an art technique from India and relook at it again in the modern days. This is where I picked the Mughal miniatures and I recreated this painting, this miniature painting, line art of that painting, the one that you see on the left hand side. This is मुगल किंग अकबर्स क्या बोलते हैं उसको कोर्ट सो उसकी कोर्ट में फिर उसके सारे जितने भी यू नो मिनिस्टर्स थे all the other people that he had. And this was basically what we term today as Rajkaran, politics. This is a sort of kind of politics only. The only difference is तब monarchy होता था अभी नहीं है. But everything else is the same. There used to be uh, messengers who used to, uh, travel across India or across the world. And जो भी राजा ने किया है, जो वो करने वाले हैं, जो जो नई स्कीम्स वो लाने वाले हैं, वो they used to tell to everybody. There used to be like a private assistant of sorts, जो हर राजा को, उनकी हर चीज़ में मदद करता था इससे. Then a lot of ministers like these transform to today's day, where basically we have the politicians from today. And I say, because this was done back in the day in 2017, you'll see a lot of familiar faces which were back in the day. So you'll see Arnab Goswami here with a cameraman. Please ignore my skills. I didn't have really good illustration skills back in the day, but I tried my best. I was just in second year.
That is also a proof that
The code,
since you've been consistent from
yeah,
2017, how the improvement has been come, and
yeah.
that's also proof to that.
Yeah, I've been very consistent in that sense. So I'll give to that. Consistency actually improves your work a lot. So yeah, uh, adding to that, skills actually is a very skills is not that tricky thing. The tricky thing is consistency and discipline. Skill, देखो यार आप you work on something every day consistently, your skills will improve. Let's say Rutwa wants to try singing. Rutwa starts today. After 2 months, of course, he's gonna improve. But अगर ऋतुवा 2 महीने कंटिन्यू करता है कि नहीं करता है, that is the main challenge here. That is what you should be focusing on. Now coming back to the project again, the royal darbar was transformed into the Sansad Bhavan. So you'll see the architecture is changed little by little. जिस तरह के आर्ट फॉर्म्स भी और जिस तरह के वॉल डेकोर भी उनके यहाँ पे लगे हुए थे, दैट ऑल्सो चेंज अ लॉट. सो they had a lot of floral patterns and everything going across, jalis going across. Uh, Even the way that columns and everything was done was transformed into something else, which was heavily inspired by the European architecture. Because of course, our Sansad Bhavan and our all our political like our buildings are inspired by the British architecture. So इसलिए columns, इसलिए everything that else that you see is transformed a lot. You'll see a lot of familiar faces like Manmohan Singh. Uh, and this Anna Hazare was making a lot of waves back in the day, and he was actually considered bigger than any politician in India. So he was actually sitting on a pedestal where every politician at some point kind of wanted to associate themselves with him. We have Raj Thackeray, we have Narendra Modi, we have Amit Shah, we have Yogi, we have Kejriwal, we have Rahul Gandhi. We have a lot of politicians like these, LK Advani. So that was the idea basically. Again, back from 2017. I didn't have a lot of confidence on coloring things that day. Sorry, that year. So coloring आप उतना शायद मेरे काम में देखोगे नहीं. But again, softwares were not readily available. So this was done on paper using microns. So first, I used to sketch using a pencil. I've been sketching or painting since I was a kid, since I was 5. So I'm very used to the traditional way of painting and making things. So of course, this was made using pencil. उसको फिर micron से I made the final illustration. Then I scanned it in a printer which was available in NID. उसमें से हम लोग ने pencils की line हटा दी and I only kept the micron, and then we removed the background, the white background, and made it into a PNG so that we can use it on any platform. So if you actually zoom in, you'll see that this is not actually a very good quality one. You'll see the line consistency is not properly done. You'll see a lot of mistakes that I've done. You won't see a very clean work. You'll see like proper hand drawn. You'll see that I was struggling to make hands. I was struggling to make faces. I used to understand human anatomy, of course, but The nitty-gritties of stuff I didn't understand that well. So this was one of the project. Another project was this something that inspired me from where I come from again, Maharashtra. So the region I live in here in Chitnis Nagar, which is a part of Nagpur. So back in the day, 70s, 80s, 60s was when India was at peak with their textile mills. We have had a lot of textile mills. गुजरात में टेक्सटाइल मिल्स थे, मुंबई में थे, महाराष्ट्र में थे, everywhere. India was known for textile. No, India is still known for textiles. So we had a lot of textile mills. अब in mills में workers used to work, daily wage workers, lots and lots of workers. Every mill at least used to have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 workers. And these workers used to work on mills, the machines, the packing, everything, logistics operations में हर चीज़ के ऊपर वो काम करते थे. अब क्या हुआ जब इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन इंडिया में आया तो क्या होता है कि जो सेम चीज वहां हुई थी इन द वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड इन यूरोप इन अमेरिका कि पीपल वेंट अनएम्प्लॉयड बिकॉज द सेम थिंग दैट इज हैपनिंग विद एआई राइट नाउ द सेम कंसर्न दैट वी ऑल हैव विद एआई द सेम थिंग हैपेंड 60-70 years बैक कि अभी मशीनरी आ रही है अब रोबोट्स आ रहे हैं तो और जॉब्स विल बी गॉन एंड द सेम थिंग एक्चुअली हैपेंड because of industrial revolution, a lot of workers were replaced by machines. Then another thing is because all these cities, the metro cities that we call today, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, Kolkata, where they are developing so much. So everybody wanted a lots and lots of lands to make commercial spaces, आपकी residential spaces, your क्या बोलते हैं उसको, your मार्केट स्पेसेस एवरीथिंग. सो उसके लिए बहुत बड़ी बड़ी जगह चाहिए थी, एकर्स एंड एकर्स ऑफ लैंड वाज नीडेड, जो अभी की केस नहीं है. अभी आपको लैंड इतना बड़ा चाहिए होगा तो आपको आउटस्कर्ट्स पे करना पड़ेगा. इसलिए ऑल द प्राइवेट इंस्टीट्यूशंस दैट वी हैव टुडे इन स्प्रेड इन एकर्स आर आउटसाइड द सिटीज बिकॉज इन सिटीज वी डोंट हैव लैंड्स. तो तब क्या होता था, ये मिल्स के पास बहुत ज़्यादा लैंड होती थी, बहुत सारी लैंड. तो जो मिल के ओनर्स होते थे ये मिल्स को बेच देते थे फॉर अ लम सम अमाउंट, crores and crores of rupees to these builders so that they can build all these residential complexes and everything in these spaces. अब मुझे एक बात बताओ, what will happen if thousands and thousands of people जिनको एक ही काम आता है मशीन ऑपरेट करना या फिर सूत काटना या फिर कपड़ा बनाना, अब इनको बाकी कुछ काम आता नहीं है, भाषाएं आती नहीं है, what would they do? They'll go jobless. There is
Jobless,
no
yeah.
other job that they can do, right? They can pick up any other job जो मैन्युअली आप कर पाओ बिकॉज दे कुड ओनली डू मैनुअल लेबर, दे कुडंट डू एनीथिंग एल्स. एंड कंप्यूटर्स तो उतने अब तब डेवलप नहीं थे कि आप कंप्यूटर से क्या आप कंप्यूटर जॉब करोगे, डेस्क वाला जॉब करोगे. तो व्हाट यूज्ड टू हैपन वाज उसमें से बहुत सारे लोग दे यूज्ड टू गो बैक टू देयर विलेजेस, दे यूज्ड टू यू नो ट्राई टू गेट डू समथिंग. एंड अगर सब कुछ फेल होता था तो दे यूज्ड टू सुसाइड. बहुत लोग इसमें मारे भी गए. लेकिन इनका फैमिलीज जो होता था, इनके बच्चे होते थे, इनकी फैमिलीज होती थी. अब यार पैसा तो सबको लगता है टू सर्वाइव इन आउट इन द इन द इंडस्ट्री और आउट देयर इन द सोसाइटी. सो व्हाट दे यूज्ड टू डू वाज तभी 70s 60s 70s 80s में ही क्या हुआ बिकॉज ऑफ दिस कि इतना ज़्यादा लेबर था जो अनएम्प्लॉयड था एंड उनके पास जॉब नहीं था, उनके पास काम नहीं था और उनको पैसा चाहिए था. तो क्या होता था उसी टाइम पे अंडरवर्ल्ड जो था मुंबई का एंड ऑल अक्रॉस इंडिया पीक्ड because what all these dons and these these local gundas needed was people who could do a job like a murder or thief or like chori chakari for a very very क्या बोलते हैं उसको वेरी लेस प्राइस. और तभी क्या होता था कि जो मिल वर्कर्स के बच्चे होते थे वो इन सारे इलीगल चीज़ों में खुद को इन्वॉल्व कर लेते थे बिकॉज काफ़ी क्विकली पैसा मिलता था. एम आई क्लियर टिल नाउ? आपको समझ गया क्या सिनारियो है?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Scenario is very clear.
परफेक्ट. ओके. सो जो द ग्रेट बॉम्बे टेक्सटाइल मिल स्ट्राइक था वो उसी के लिए था कि सबके बच्चे जो थे वो अंडरवर्ल्ड में घुस रहे थे, सारे यंग यंग बच्चे थे जिनको कट्टा थमा दिया जाता था, जिनको who used to get like guns, who used to get suparis to kill people, to threaten people. तभी से ये हफ्ता वाला सिस्टम शुरू हुआ. तभी all these people like Dawood, Arun Gawi, who's called Daddy in Mumbai, all these people came into picture. And Girni is basically a word which we say for mills in Marathi. So the Girni is a graphic novel which I worked on in my third year, which is inspired by the Great Bombay Textile Strike, mill strike. That is the context of this project, by the way. So तभी से if you see, all my projects were very research heavy. So what I did was I traveled to Mumbai. I traveled back here in Nagpur because we have had a lot of textile mills here also, and around the textile mills we have had families. We have had families here also जिनका third या fourth generation है, जिसके दादा परदादा मिल्स में काम करते थे. कोई एक रिलेटिव है जो लोकल गुंडा बन गया and all these. So I talked to these people by myself. And because I come from a background where I actually also grew up in a school which was not that fancy, which I grew up with people who are auto, जिनके family members auto drivers है, rickshaw drivers है, mills में काम करते हैं, साड़ियों की दुकान में काम करते हैं. So it was very easy for me to get access to people like these to talk to them, and I have the command on the local language, right? So this was the context of Girni, the untold story of the Great Bombay Textile Mill. Now कैसे है, आप में से बहुत लोगों को टेक्सटाइल स्ट्राइक या मिल्स के बारे में भी पता होगा, कम लोगों को, नॉट बहुत लोगों को. अंडरवर्ल्ड के बारे में ऑल ऑफ यू माइट नो, but none of you knew कि why did it increase so much in 70s and 80s. इतना कैसे बूम हो गया? How did Dawood became so big? How did Ganesh Gaitonde from Sacred Games became so big?
Yeah.
This is the story. That is the story that I wanted to focus on.
There are very
Context समझ गया
few
सबको?
Bollywood movies, mainstream
Yeah,
movies, which touch upon the fact. Like, don't go very deep, but there are some movies that touch upon this fact.
exactly. Exactly. So Once Upon in Vadala, Once Upon in Mumbai, and all these films talk about the rise of these dons.
Hmm.
They don't talk about all the other kids who got into these wrong things, who got killed early, who got abused, who got raped, who got jailed, and that is why Girni came into picture. Third year ka design project. These are some of the hand-drawn pages that I made from back in the day. By that time, because I used to sketch every day for hours, so my skills improved heavily. So I used to go sit in the library, read as many graphic novels as I can. इंटरनेट वॉज नॉट दैट ऑल्सो डेवलप्ड हमारे मतलब यार था इंस्टाग्राम था फेसबुक था सब कुछ था बट अभी जितना है ना प्रिवेलेंट बहुत ज्यादा इट वॉज नॉट दैट प्रिवेलेंट so the only source of knowledge was books and graphic novels and all the people that you can talk to. So these are some of the pages. Layouting and all I only explored by myself. Fish eye, you'll see like a lot of fish eye kind of a situation. You'll see a lot of close-ups. You'll see a lot of bird eye views of cities and everything. These were like this was Bombay back in the day. Uh, उनका कपड़ा, the type of clothes also they're wearing is inspired by that. Some of the close-ups, again same procedure. आपको procedure के बारे में you'll get to know. In this page, you will particularly see like the red sketch lines used, done by pencil. उसके
Yeah.
ऊपर फिर माइक्रॉन से we did the final line work. Then उसको फिर finally scan वैन करके भी निकाल दिया हम लोग ने. So this was these were some of the pages, and the final page looked something of this sorts, which was colored in Photoshop. So जो sepia वाला tone था ना, जो 70s and 80s का, that is something that I wanted to achieve through my graphic novel. The protagonist is basically, so what's my inspiration? The Great Bombay Textile Strike and the aftermath of the strike. So this was Datta Samant, the Mill Worker Association जो होता था, उनके leader थे. Okay, so imagine like you all come from some different colleges or some different societies. हर society का एक secretary होता है, एक leader होता है, right? So same way, जितने भी ये textile mill workers थे, all across India, all across Maharashtra, उनके दत्ता सामंत जो थे, this is a real person by the way. These are real pictures. तो ये देखिए, ये machines ने पूरा replace कर दिया सबको. Datta Samant was the voice of all these people. See All India Trade Union camp. They used to fight against all these things. Cotton mills. So they used to, and see, you'll see a lot of communist symbolism here. That doesn't happen nowadays. If something happens to your community, I don't think there'll be a leader who will talk on behalf of everything. That doesn't happen nowadays, by the way. So, what led me to select this topic? The rise of criminal activities in Bombay during the 80s and 90s. This is Arun Gowri, also known as Daddy. He's alive, by the way. He is here in Nagpur jail only. Arun Gowri, as seen with Bala Sahib Thackeray. Arun Gowri when he's actually for the first time. Why do I want to work on this topic? To tell the untold stories of people associated closely with the workers. So Datta Samant again, he used to be the voice of the voiceless, the people who used to work in all these mills. You see the picture here. This is from the Phoenix Mall in Mumbai, by the way. Do you see this chimney here?
Yeah,
Yes.
Kamla Mills.
Phoenix Mall, by the way. Guy. Yes. This is Phoenix Mall. The old picture when it was a mill. When it was a mill. This was converted into a mall, a commercial complex. They kept this particular segment exactly the same, apparently to honor the textile mill. But if you read more on the Phoenix Mall and how the mill was converted into a mall, you'll hear so many heartbreaking stories. And these heartbreaking stories is something which I wanted to talk about. So there is this movie called City of Gold, which is also called as Lal Bagh Parad in Marathi. This is a Marathi film which focuses on all these families. You see all these young kids. These are all young kids, people under their 30s, people in their 20s, people in their teenage years. And how, look at their faces, look at their expressions, because they became that. There are multiple articles, there are multiple documentaries which talk about these things. So I took inputs from expert who used to visit our college. So Vijay Kumar Armugam, it's Abhi the famous artist who does a lot of mythology inspired work nowadays. I met him. I met Vijay Kumar Armugam. I talked to them. I understood their process. Then my main objective, my main audience was 18 plus because of course there's a lot of killing, a lot of illegal things which were going to happen in my graphic novel. So I wanted to talk about those things as well. Then who all were my characters? So Sanjay Shahane, Sanju is the protagonist. He's an 18-year-old kid. Sanjay's father, Ram Shahane, is a 52-year-old mill worker. Dr. Saib is Datta Samant, basically the same guy that you saw here. Datta Samant is the main character that inspired me. Then Shankar Patel, owner of Great Bombay Mill. Then Kalpana Patel, daughter of Shankar Patel, Sanju's sister. Daddy is Arun Gowri, Baikula company ka head. Bhavin Patel, Sanjay's friend. Salim More, member of Baikula gang, and all these people. Like there was a entire world building. A lot of sketches. So I clicked my own pictures to actually develop more on the character expressions of the character, their clothing and styles and everything, how they stand, how their facial expressions have changed. An 18-year-old kid's face shouldn't look like this with so much of angst. The facial expressions when they're angry, when they're nervous, different postures because he got into so many things which he shouldn't have got into. What happens when he's drunk, he's smoking, he's confused, if he's killing somebody, if he's lifting something, again, if he's smoking, lots and lots of scenarios like these. Then again, I clicked a lot of my own pictures when I'm running, when I'm attacking somebody from their point of view. When somebody is down on the floor and I'm attacking them, how will they see me? How will the foreshortening happen? Again, more scenarios. So my panel, my, how my paneling actually works, what kind of scenarios I'm going to talk about. More paneling, then the final layouting, then like a cover page, how the cover page would be. Again, daily life scenarios like where he is, uh, brushing his teeth, uh, dreaming of something, and all these things. Then my chapters, there were 9 chapters. Fall of Union leader is fall of Union leader, Datta Samant. Struggle to survive for Sanju and Sanju's families and all thousands of families like these. The strike and assassination, how Datta Samant was assassinated. Then Mills and the death of Ram. Ram is Sanju's father, my protagonist's father. Then Bombay Underworld introduction is in fifth. Then first love of Sanju. Shankar Patel's contract. The mill owner. Then Karma and the Chakra, which is basically the same thing happening again and again. देर वॉज अ प्लान देर इज अ लोकेशन प्लान ऑल्सो कि संजू का सोसाइटी कैसे रहेगा उसका घर कहाँ पे है चाय की टपरी कहाँ पे है मेडिकल शॉप इज वेयर रेलवे का क्रॉसिंग इज वेयर दिस एंटायर प्लानिंग देन द लेआउटिंग देन द पैनल वर्किंग so layout of the final pages so this is the assassination wala chapter this is the assassination in process Sanju is the one who ends up killing Datta Samant uh, then another suparis that he got that entire sequence of them chasing this person the fisheye and everything that is there Then small instances of how he got into smoking and all that. So he's smoking a BD on top of, like, you can see like mills in the background. This is the entire society. This is like a slum area. How Sanju is not able to sleep anymore. He has insomnia, but he doesn't know because he comes from a background or people who don't know what insomnia. Then the title design is inspired by the same, that stencil work that is done on these boards. Then different styles also that I explored. I wanted to explore digital as well. I wanted to explore, crayons as well. But again, these kind of styles as well. But eventually, what worked is the style that you guys saw because these looked very comical for the topic that I picked. So finally, this was the style that I picked, which you guys have already seen. So that is another project, guys. I'll move on to the next one. We'll do the question answer session later on only. I'll quickly go through everything now. Another project which I had done in my second year again is recently we all enjoyed this film called Chhawa based on Chhatrapati Sambhaji's life. Uh, Chhatrapati Shivaji's son and the next Chhatrapati of the Maratha Empire. I had actually done a graphic novel on him long time back in 2016 or 17 only. So, which was basically inspired by King Sambhaji's life only. Lots and lots of style explorations were there. Again, I explored a lot of comical styles, a lot of colorful styles, but of course, they didn't work for the serious story, which is of Sambhaji, Chhatrapati Sambhaji. So, eventually, what worked was this style only. I still have the hand drawn pages with me. I've drawn around like some 15, 20 pages, uh, which, the coloring was like this. इसका documentation मैंने बराबर किया नहीं. I'm really sorry, but like the war scene of this sorts, how they dealt with Mughals and Siddhis and Portuguese, the Maratha and Maratha army. So the chapters were divided: his coronation, his marriage, him becoming the next Chhatrapati. So I'll share the pages soon with you guys. I have the hand-on pages. Then how the next Peshwa came into picture, because after Chhatrapatis, Peshwas were the ones who handled the Maratha Empire. So I worked on a graphic novel like that also. Again, if you see, the documentation is not very well done, guys. I really want you all to focus on the documentation, by the way. Uh, I was very bad at documenting when I was in college. So, and why I keep on focusing on documentation part is because you'll see the improvement in the current projects. Then my first freelance was for this metal rock band called Ayog from Nagpur. What they do is they take mantras and they take scriptures from our mythology and history and they convert that into songs. So I don't know if you guys will be able to hear or not, but this was their song, their first song. This was their logo, and this was again like the title of the song was Annihilation of Rakta Beach. Uh, this was Kali. This, she's annihilating Rakta Beach. Rakta Beach was one of the असुर्स from our mythology, जिसका अगर एक blood का drop भी if it falls on the ground, so he's born again. So there's like infinite Rakta Bija. So what Kali did was she killed him, and then basically she contained the entire blood that he was dripping, and she drank the blood, and that is the story basically. And Shiva came to calm her down. So Shiva is on the bottom. And the reason why Shiva is also represented like that is because the factual representation of Shiva throughout our history is in that way. Because he's a sage. He's living in Himalayas. So he is supposed to look very rugged. So this was the thing. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear the song here or not, but I would recommend that you go on my Behance and hear the song also. Fantastic, a very beautiful song. It's a metal song, by the way, so very cool. So this was my first freelance, for which I charged 900 rupees. So very important to mention that also. The brown color that you see on the paper is basically coffee. I was not able to afford. Yeah, I was not able to afford acrylic paints. That's why I used coffee. I was a student, of course. Buying an acrylic paint of 120 rupees was a big deal for me. So coffee was available at house, and what I wanted to do was, I could do it using tea or coffee. So I mixed tea and coffee and I made that. Then I'll skip this one. You guys can go through this. I'll just quickly talk about this because again I talked about to you guys, right? Ki softwares, laptop, and all that. These uh, mediums are not available readily available to us. So what I did was I printed the this was a movie poster. So I printed the photos. I cut them manually and I crafted like posters from my friend's film. So these were manually done, by the way, all these posters. If you see, this was like a cutout, background का सारा cutout था. Then I composed that in Photoshop because Photoshop paid version नहीं था और free थोड़ा सा corrupt था. So these are all composed and then I made them into like a movie poster. I want to talk about these processes because they are very important. They paved the way to where I am today. I'll show you the photos also, by the way. These are the photos. They were printed on a very cheap color printer in college. They were cut manually using a scissor. That's why you'll see like a lot of unevenness also. And then they were like composed together and scanned. Ritu, I think your phone is ringing.
No, it was my roommate.
But yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, I'm gonna skip like two other projects because it's taking a lot of time. But these projects are also from college only. But I would recommend you guys to please go through them. We don't have a lot of time. That's why I need to like wrap it up very quickly. Now coming back to what I'm doing today. Uh, wow, guys, just a moment. I want to drink water.
Yeah, I'll just add on till then is key students, especially from design school or even who are learning on their own, they can take two things from here. One that everyone keeps
Yeah,
asking, how do we document our work? How do we create a portfolio presentation for the employer? So I feel this is a very good way
yeah,
instead of only showing our sketches and the final version or only showing a time lapse of you sketching.
yeah,
This is a very good way of showing ki how were
yeah,
you inspired, what was the original situation at that time, and then how did you convert that into your style with explorations as well. So showing failed attempts is also a good
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And the second thing I would like to tell is that
Exactly.
college would be the only time where you
Hmm.
can
Sorry.
freely explore without any risk of money as well because you don't have the burden of earning. So you should explore more stories
Exactly.
like this because you never know in the age of social media when your comic goes viral and a movie is created on that story and then that old memory
Yeah.
of the Indian history is brought to mainstream.
Exactly, exactly my point. And very well put. Thank you so much. See, you don't have to be like, very like, एकदम ऐसा कि तुम one second ना मेरे इसमें म्यूजिक शुरू हो गया कहीं से बैकग्राउंड में. So you don't have to have a very क्या बोलते हैं उसको polished version of your documentation. As you all can see, my documentation was horrible. It only got like little by little better. I'll just quickly skim through. If you see this one also, थोड़ा थोड़ा करके वो थोड़ा better होते गया with every project, right? So you just have to keep on putting your work out there. That's the only thing. You right people who will see your work for what it is, your passion, your love for your work. They'll give you the work that you are supposed to, that you deserve to do, right? So yeah, thank you Rutwa for saying that. But I'm gonna skip these last two. This was done in third year. This was done during COVID. This was actually Modak actually. I was selling T-shirts also, my own designs. They were also inspired by India. They were actually specifically inspired by women. So please go through that one also. Now coming back to what I'm doing today, which is Studio Modak, which I was also coming to what I was doing before Studio Modak is basically Fool and what I was doing for them. So this is a Nutty Gritty's Rakhi hamper. Basically, a Rakhi hamper that I designed for this brand called Nutty Gritty's from Delhi, and a very modern contemporary twist for something as traditional as Rakhi. So if you see, the colors are also taking in a similar way. The kind of illustration, the kind of dressing is also in a similar way. So this was like an entire collection. The main challenge was times change, tradition don't. So that was the tagline. कि आपके traditions change नहीं होते हैं, times change होते हैं. The way our next generation will celebrate the festivals will be different. It's not like they won't celebrate. They will definitely celebrate because that makes you feel like home. That brings the family together. That brings friends together. So traditions don't change, but the times change. That was the basic idea. So this was the idea behind the Nutty Gritty's car gift box. Please go through the entire write-up. I won't do that because we have to talk about a lot of projects. But the main box illustration was something of this sort: a family coming together, a modern family coming together, uh, enjoying the snacks. enjoying like juice and like a simple, normal family coming together festival of sorts. Then snippets of where you can actually have the snacks. You can have it at work also. You can gift it to people as well. We are also giving a Rakhi with our gift hamper. And of course, the dry fruits, because we're talking about dry fruits, and dry fruits should be there. So the inside was had like a grab and go hamper. We had a lot of inclusions inside. So this grab and go hamper had basically like 4 packets, which you saw on the main box here. These packets, which you saw here also. So where can you enjoy them? That was also represented on this box. So you can share them with your friends. You can enjoy them in a garden when you are reading through a book. You can just like it is the concept is grab and go. It's like a packet, right? So it's a pocket size packet. You put it in your pack. आप लोकल में जा रहे हो, आप काम करने जा रहे हो, ब्रेकफास्ट मिस हो गया, आप अभी जैसा मेरा प्रेजेंटेशन है, प्रेजेंटेशन के पहले मैं खा नहीं सकता हूँ कुछ, मुझे बहुत नर्वसनेस होता है, नो मैटर व्हाट हाउ मच एवर आई प्रेजेंट 100 प्रेजेंटेशंस भी हो गए तो मुझे होता ही है, बट आई गेट नर्वस. So I can have like a grab and go bag like this. So that was the idea. So then bamboo socks. I talked about bamboo, right? Bamboo socks we talked about.
Yeah.
So another inclusion was bamboo socks. So this person is going to office. So like a little inclusion put in his hands also, and he's wearing the socks made out of bamboo. So this was like a fantastic gift which sisters can give to their brother. So it had a, like a rakhi, a plantable rakhi, uh, bamboo socks, roli chawal of course, and the grab and go packs. And there is an ad also, like a quick ad, which you guys can see later. This was the box. I'm really sorry about the image quality, but like basically better image quality I have with me, which I'll update soon. So if you see the documentation has improved a little. Another project which I did for Fool was Natural Galal. This is a very interesting project documentation which I want all of you to see. I have put my heart and soul into this. So please. And many of these project documentation now I don't focus on the process because I think most of my previous project talk about my process a lot more. So I'm not focusing on process anymore. I'm just talking about what the concept was, how the details, the nitty-gritties of what I've designed, and the final documentation of that project. So full natural Galad gift box. Of course, if you're talking about Holi, it needs to be very colorful. So project overview to create a packaging design for full Holi colors, keeping in focus the celebration, sense of nostalgia, and fun moments. Right. And then Fool is a brand which is inspired by India, beautiful Indian vibrant culture, etc., etc., etc. So the memories I tried to capture here was kids playing Holi with friends, how we used to play, Dhol and Tasha, everywhere you go across India. Without Dhol, yeah, DJ and also, yeah, it's outdated, or I don't like DJ, the concept of DJ. Dhol Tasha is the main thing. Then Gujia and all the other mithai that we have, Thandai, Papad and Dadi, our grandparents make Papad, Pichkari, of course, and Holi with college friends. So the final illustrations were something of this sorts. So the paper patakas in the celebratory in all these places wherever you can celebrate Holi. Aapka ghar, aapka society or college. Paper patakas are always there. Pichkaris, a bucket full of pichkaris. The filmy college Holi fest where you are dressed nicely in white and you are using a pichkari. आपके पीछे पताकास लगे हुए हैं. Then lots and lot of snacks and mithais. Kids playing Holi, of course. Then Holi ki Raat, the Holi ka Dahan Raat, where you have gulal colors which you put on your loved ones and the Holi ka celebration. Dhol, of course, how can we forget Dhol? The colors, your dadi making papad, that uncle making thandai for everybody, and the main ingredient for Holi, and again the kids playing Holi. And we compose all of it together to make have like this very beautiful bento box layout Holi celebration. The photo shoot, and of course Alia. So that was the project documentation. Then I'm going to talk about another. This I've already talked about a lot. A lot of project documentation in this is not there. So it's also at some point a confidential document. So only the final pictures are there and the concept is there. So I would recommend you guys go through it. The last project that I'm going to talk about for this particular presentation is the Ramayana box, because I want to focus on what all inspired me, not just the story, by the way. A lot of other things also inspired me. And then you guys can take your time, go through my project documentation on my Behance, because all of the project documentations are very personalized. So last but not the least, the Ramayana box of fool. I have divided my project documentation chapter wise. Chapter number one is general introduction of the project. So celebrating the return of Lord Rama and Goddess Sita in the city of Ayodhya through Fool's Diwali hamper. So they are coming back. Mind you, a lot of so this has been there since 3 years now. Bestsellers, bestseller in India, in Canada, and USA right now. Bestseller for all B2B. Lots and lots of brands and designers have copied this. We have sent notice to lots and lots of designers. So this is the most celebrated representation of Lord Rama's Ayodhya in the recent times. And I want to mention that. You know why I want to mention that? Because the documentation, the entire process was very, very intriguing, very, very detailed, very time taking. So yeah, coming back to what inspired, how I made it happen, what made one of the most celebrated box in India right now a successful box is this process. So, have you ever seen an artwork depicting Lord Rama's like return to Ayodhya? We have seen the entire Ramayana through multiple channels, through multiple artworks, etc., through multiple representation. Music say, natakos say, movies say, everything. But there is not a lot of representation of his arrival in Ayodhya. कि वो अराइवल कैसे रहा होगा, how happy the residents of Ayodhya must have, been. Like the Ayodhya Vasis must have been so happy after 14 years. Their Raja, his younger brother Hanuman, Mata Sita is coming back. Then how happy the gods must have been themselves to witness the grand welcome, because when they left with that heaviness in their heart that they are supposed to be away for 14 years. And how happy all the ministers and Gandharvas must have been. So imagine how the people of Ayodhya might have celebrated the return of their prince and princess after 14 years of Vanavas. So there must have been a grandeur of beautiful decoration. The decorations that we see now in Ayodhya or everywhere in India, it is nothing as compared to how it must have been then, right? All the Gandharvas singing praises in unison. They're singing, they're singing the classical music. They're playing the classical instrument, the Shuddh classical instrument, not the fusion classical instrument of nowadays. Rudra Veenas, Sitars, Dholak, Pakhawat, so much. Angels showering flowers and singing in praises. And then musicians on the ground also playing multiple instruments and singing for them in unison. Even the animals must have been celebrating, right? Because uh, in our culture, animals were also an integral part of our stories, and that's why you could see a lot of animal representation throughout all these stories. Uh, the Jataka tales only had animals, so animals must have also celebrated, and that was the inspiration. So while working on this design brief, I constantly kept on thinking of what I would do if the person I admire so much and look up to meets me after years of no contact. And that really did help. आजकल के ज़माने में you could see me on social media, me everywhere. You could see the videos of me also maybe already present on social media. Imagine तब कुछ नहीं होता था. Now social media, nothing. You some of the people might have seen Lord Rama 14 years back, and now they're seeing after 14 years. So that happiness, that that heavy heartedness might have been like वो soothe हो गया होगा पूरा. So उस वो एक emotion था जो I wanted to show. So what all I did for my research, I saw the entire Ramanand Sagar's Ramayana, of course. I read Amarjit Rakhatha Ramayana. It's a very big volume, just to see how important this topic and how people across ages have represented Ramayana. Then Yugo Sako's Ramayana, of course, a very culturally, you know, driven, a very culturally impactful Ramayana, because Japanese artists, Korean artists, and Indian artists are coming together and then making something. So the beautiful collaboration of sorts. Then I also got inspired by Ferd Painting from Rajasthan, which inspired by the artwork ka art style. And I fused it with my typical, the style that you saw in the Fool Ka Holy gift box, or you saw Nutty Gritty's ka artwork. So I fused the Ferd painting with my own art style, because Ferd में आपके limited colors होते हैं, 4 colors ही are only there. My particular style has multiple colors, so I fused both of them together. I used to listen to Rahul Deshpande, whom I'm meeting today, by the way, after 5 years. I'm very happy to share that. So I was listening to his classical music a lot, which kept me going. I made a lots and lots of chapter two, all the efforts. I made lots and lots of sketches, which uh, I have the documentation. I have a file, a folder of all these sketches. How the the Viman must have been, the Pushpak Viman, how the seating arrangement in Pushpak Viman must have been. So if you see here, if you see both of them are sitting down, here again both of them are sitting down, but they are facing their back towards us. The main rule of theater, because I've done theater and I've also studied theater for this during my research, is that you can't show your back to your audience. And that was also one of the key pointers when I was making them, these two. There was also another representation where Ram, Lakshman, Sita were on the pedestal and only Hanuman was niche. Hanumanji was niche. So lots and lots of representations like these. Then the making of final artwork. This was done entirely on Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, using a mouse. So pen tool and a mouse. So thousands and thousands of layers. And the final colored artwork. Now if you see, it's an amalgamation of my own style and the third artwork. So for me, you won't see like a detailed art forms like these. Lots and lots of Easter eggs which only I know about. The cow's representation, Garuda's representation here on Pushpak Viman, uh, Nag, Shesh Nag, because Ram is actually Vishnu. So if you see here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on your screen or not. You'll see a snake here, which is basically Shesh Nag. Garuda is of course there. So Easter eggs which only I know about were also included. Most of you will never see them, but I know what I worked on, and that is the only thing that mattered to me at some point. So then the final, of course, the project, the final documentation of the product. This is how the box was, and inside, lots and lots of trees inspired by Ashok Vatika. Things like the write-up के ऊपर and नीचे जो starting and ending point होता है is inspired by the bow,
Really sorry to cut you off,
and
but
this is the final box.
I guess we can wrap it up in 5 minutes and move on to the
Yeah,
questions, or else it'll go on till like the whole day.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, yeah, please. So then the final documentation. एक बार quickly 5 minutes में मैं क्या करता हूँ, मेरा जो इसका स्टूडियो मोदा का कैटलॉग था, just quickly take you guys through
Yeah,
that
yeah.
because we haven't talked about Studio Modak. So
Okay.
Studio Modak philosophy is basically magical things happen to those who believe in magic. ठीक है? We believe in magic. We believe in magical things. We term ourselves as magicians, storytellers, and then designers. So we don't just design, we use story, sprinkle some magic, put things together, and we create an experience. We are Studio Modak. So some areas we specialize in is identity design, brand development, packaging, illustration, brand campaign direction, web design, product photography, product videography, for all the categories that you can ever think of. It's not just limited to retail or FMCG, it's for every industry. So we imagine a Modak universe where everything is designed by Modak, made by the magicians in the Studio Modak team. These are the legacy of collaborations that we have had till now. We have collaborated from the Ambani family to Borosil Netflix IBM to Kedarnath Badrinath Trust to Leela Hotels to Shunya India to Kisan Se. Almost every industry you can think of. We were recognized by the Minister of Information and Broadcasting, by Piyush Goyal himself, by Vogue India, LA News 18, ZFS, Femina, Hindu, recently by Tarun Bharat, the newspaper. And we have worked on multiple projects. I'll share this catalog also with Rutwa so that everybody can go through the projects also.
Yeah.
Quick documentation of all the projects, which we have already seen. Nutty Gritty is Diwali gift box, which celebrates the entire India. Shunya, which celebrates Himalayas because we have never celebrated Himalayas as much as we are supposed to celebrate it. This box celebrates, this experience box celebrates Himalaya. This branding celebrates Himalayas. Anand celebrates the southern region of India, Karnataka, Mysuru Palace, etc. The textile of Karnataka region, the music and the culture of a region. Anand Sweets ka Eid ka collection, which celebrates, of course, the influence of Persian and Islamic architecture and art in India. And Studio Modak is where the magic happens. This is a small studio space, a very personalized studio space. Just a three-room studio space with like a small photography studio, a presentation room, and a working room. Lots and lots of group discussion and work presentation, and a very beautiful photography studio which we have built with love and passion. And of course, we can't do any of these without our vendors across India. So we have a lot of vendors across India, from printing vendors to artists. So beyond our studio, we are also backed by a vibrant network of makers, artisans, and designers from across India, ready to bring any idea to life just the way you and we imagine it. That's it. I think now we can do the question answer uh, ritual.
Yeah. We'll keep it short, so we'll keep like 2 to 3 minutes per question since we have about 8, 9 questions. And
Yeah,
I'll start with one question I had, and then we'll move on to the chat. So one thing
yeah,
we discussed in class recently, if you see many products in specifically which today's designers are making,
one
most of
second,
the
just
people
start.
who are saying that they're referencing India, it is mostly only the motifs or the colors they use in the packaging, and or not even the packaging, just the upfront illustrations which they have. So they make a motif and then they put a sticker on it just, and they call it something that we referenced India. And the actual culture or the actual process which was used at that time, that is not leveraged to create the actual product. It is just a sticker on top of it. So what do you have to say on that?
That happens because we don't go depth. We don't go in depth of all these projects. Whenever, let's say, somebody makes a packaging or a branding inspired by FUD style or the Patachitra style or the Varli style, we pick only the things on the surface.
Hmm.
We don't look at the process of how they make it, what kind of color pigments they use. Because if you see, if you read on all these things, because I've worked on so many art forms and inspired by so many art forms and everything, I've talked to so many artists. Joshi ji, whose family is actually doing fur paintings through generations. I've talked to him also. So what happens is, पता है तुम्हें क्या होता है फर्ड पेंटिंग में, when they start working on a painting, first is they use the natural pigments for coloring. They don't use artificial colors like acrylic and
Yeah.
pastels. ठीक है. जब आते हैं तो बनाते हैं ना, पूरा आर्टवर्क होने तक they don't make the eyes of the gods.
Hmm.
They never make the eyes of the gods. It is a very small detail which none of us will ever care about, because what we see is the final artwork. Why do you care why they don't make the eyes? They don't make the eyes. The eyes are empty. द रीजन फॉर दैट इज कि दे फील लाइक कि जब तक पूरा आर्टवर्क हो नहीं जाता है तब तक भगवान ने खुद को उस आर्टवर्क को और हमें देखना नहीं चाहिए. जब
Hmm.
हो जाएगा तभी वो देखेंगे. Otherwise, they'll be very angry on us, which is a very heartfelt moment or a thing for them, which we should really respect. And that is the same procedure that we follow when we make something inspired by Pad or Patachitra. We don't make the eyes. Even if you go back to the documentation that I've done, if you see the sketches, if you see the line art, you'll see that the eyes are missing. The eyes are not there. So that much depth we go into. And when you go into so much depth, and when you go into all these details and all these things, where you actually see the process, actually see how much time they take, how much things they work on apart from just making the artwork, only then you'll be able to achieve something that they also achieve. And only then you'll be able to see कि यार कोई भी brand या फिर उसका branding या packaging surface level पे नहीं है. They have gone into the depth. Now that I've told you the story of what inspired Girni, the graphic novel,
Yeah.
then you'll see the seriousness of that topic.
Yeah.
Then only that style of work will actually be very impactful for you. Then only it will make sense to you why I use those color palette, why it is so rugged, why it is done in a certain way,
Yeah.
right? Why certain frames make you so uncomfortable when you look at them. Very sketchy, very random, very rough, right? You
Yeah.
have to go in depth, which doesn't happen. And you know why that doesn't happen? I'll come back to the same statement which I've given you. Because everybody is focusing on short term goals
Short
and
term
capital
goals.
gains. पैसा आपको बन जाएगा, ज़्यादा बनेगा जब आप प्रोसेस के ऊपर ज़्यादा फोकस करोगे, जब आपका प्रोडक्ट या आपकी प्रोसेस ज़्यादा रिसर्च ड्रिवन रहेगी. आई होप दैट आंसर्स.
Yeah. So now moving on to the chat, Nova has a question wherein is there a traditional art form that has fascinated you the most in recent years?
Okay. Irina is a friend. She's actually
Hmm. Oh,
she's actually like a partner of Studio Modak. So,
okay.
but thanks for her for asking this question. I feel like traditional art forms से ना मुझे there is this art form from Maharashtra called Ganjifa art. Ganjifa cards you might have seen. Very interesting. It's in Maharashtra also. It's in southern India also. Okay, it's a form of a type of playing cards.
Hmm.
Okay, so there are 52 cards. Actually, depends on the region how many cards are there. Okay, so अब ये round cards होते थे. They are not a traditional vertical or a rectangle cards. ठीक है, very
Yeah.
colorful. It's kind of an amalgamation between Pattichitra and Pad. That is an art form which is really fascinating me these days. There is one of our upcoming projects which is inspired by this art form, which I won't share right now. But there are again another art form which really inspires me or which really fascinates me is Shekhawati Havelis from Rajasthan, which inspired us for one of our a campaign or a project that we did for Anand Sweets for Raksha Bandhan, which is not live yet. So a lot of our projects are not live yet, जिसमें बहुत सारे ऐसे styles हैं which really inspired us. So वो आपको दिखी जाएगी स्टूडियो मोदक के इस पे. But Ganjifa and Shekhawati palaces is something that really fascinated us. That is
Then, then we have Shubh. He's asking, can we as upcoming designers create a legacy through small brands working with them? Like how to create a legacy for smaller brands if we are working with them.
Of course, you can create Shubh. That's the thing. That's the spirit that I want you guys to have. See, I'll be very honest, and I'm going to give something a statement which might not sit well with a lot of people. All the studios that I've seen in India till now, design studios, they are either influenced by the Western style of design, minimal, bold colors, bold shapes, very minimal. There is no Indian element that you'll ever see in any of their work. There must be like one or two projects out of all the 50, 60 projects that they have worked on, which are inspired by India. Others, there'll be like a solid color or solid shapes slapped on with a font, which is just like, which doesn't have any character. Now, what India needs right now is young, fresher minds, which can, relook at, revisit what we have already, and then introduce that, rebrand that for the entire world, not just India. And that was the basic inspiration behind Studio Modak also. That is what we are also trying to do, right? And that's
Yeah.
why I feel like Studio Modak has picked up so quickly out there in the industry also. Within 1 year, we worked on 60 commercial projects just through Studio Modak. We are very young.
Yeah.
I'm very young. We worked on like some of the major brands because the brands also require something which is from our soil, from our land. The brands also require something which are not influenced by Western people. And now, how much more validation do we need? How much many more Western brands do you need to see like them slapping what you have been doing through ages on their websites, and then only you will see, okay, हाँ यार हमारे यहाँ पे भी value है चीज़ों में. So Shubh, you can really do that. I'll say, if you're thinking about it, that means you're passionate about it. Go for it, do it, and I'm telling you, there's no competition that you have here. Very few designers are doing what we are doing here right now. So no competition also. So definitely do it, and you can do it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Moving on, we have Achal Sharma. She says that she attended a
Hmm.
session at CEPT University where you said that designers are losing their passion and just working for the sake of it. That really stayed with me. Why do you think this is happening?
Because we are celebrating or we are looking at very unnecessary things, I'll say at some point. Again, something that won't sit with a lot of us. As a young designer, I also ran a lot behind fame. I'll be very upfront with you because I don't come from a very celebrated background of designers. I don't have a background. I don't have a godfather in this design industry. None of us have. Very
Hmm.
less. Very few people of us have that hand on their head. We come from humble backgrounds, right? So I wanted fame because that's only when I thought that my work will work. But then eventually, when I joined Pool, when I started working on my own things, that's when I realized that okay, sit in silence, put your head down, work on things very passionately with your heart. Everything that I do know, even in my space where I'm working in, I'll show you a lot of things, guys. I'll show you Rutva also and everybody who's here live. That everything that I do it with utmost passion. A lot of design idols that you're putting right now on pedestal, in our design industry also, they're all like most of them are all show but no process. Nobody talks about the process. Nobody talks about where their inspiration is coming from, what their process is, what we should be talking about. But if you ever visit Studio Modak, you'll see that everything that we do, from the places we sit in, the chair I'm sitting on is Chandigarh chair, design in Chandigarh, 60, 70 years back. This particular region is called Baitak, where all of us sit, discuss on things, ideate. The cover that you see on this is actually inspired by Godhadi art from Gujarat and Maharashtra. Okay, so we are celebrating every small thing. So अब क्या हो रहा है यार? All of us are kind of looking at again short-term fame. Okay, I'll do something which is trendy, which will give me some fame, which will make people talk about my work. थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा एफर्ट डालो, थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा काम कर लो. Talk about things apart from visual inspiration also, like how I talked about how music inspired me, how movies or comics inspired me, right? And trust me, 10 प्रोजेक्ट आप मीडियोकर करोगे ना, उससे अच्छा एक प्रोजेक्ट पूरे पैशन से अगर करोगे, they'll give you a lot more than how, like whatever those 10 projects will give you. I
Hmm.
hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And adding on to that question, she says that again she's working on her portfolio and wanted to know how do you incorporate storytelling through your research and how important is storytelling in design. So
Very important here.
yeah, I
We
feel
are,
that
yeah, sorry.
how do you incorporate storytelling in research is something we already covered in the whole documentation you showed about the Kamla Mills thing. So I think that must have answered her
Yeah,
question because she must asked this a long time back. But yeah, you can.
yeah, yeah. I'll just say, see, there is no set rule of doing anything.
Hmm.
पहली बात, यू आर इन द क्रिएटिव इंडस्ट्री नाउ. सेट रूल्स तो भी और आपको ब्रेक करने पड़ेंगे बिकॉज एआई विल डू द ऑल द मीडियोकर बेसिक वर्क व्हिच वी हैव बीन डूइंग आवर सीनियर्स इन द डिजाइन इंडस्ट्री हैव बीन डूइंग सिंस सो लॉन्ग. आपको एक बेसिक कंसेप्ट नोट बेसिक रिसर्च लिखना है, एआई आपको ड्राफ्ट करके देगा. what you have to do is personalization of everything that you're doing. What kind of music were you listening to? What kind of people were you talking to? What really inspired you? How your parents were reacting to certain things? How people were reacting to your brief? राइट यार, उसको जितना पर्सनलाइज कर सकते हो, जितना ह्यूमन कर सकते हो ना, उतना करो. कोई स्पेसिफिक सेट रूल नहीं है.
Hmm.
व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड स्टूडियो मोदक एज अ एजेंसी कि जहाँ पे वी वर लाइक कि वी विल बी सेलिब्रेटिंग इंडिया, आई हैड nobody to look up to, no studio in India which was celebrating India.
Hmm.
अब मेरे पास रूल्स ही नहीं थे, तो मैं कौन से रूल्स फॉलो करूँ? सो आई एम डूइंग थिंग्स इन माई ओन वे, माई पार्टनर्स आर डूइंग थिंग इन देयर ओन वे, एंड पीपल आर liking it because we are very honest and passionate about what we are doing. So put anything that you want to put in your documentation. In creativity, there is no set rule. There should never be a set rule. We are supposed to break rules. Okay?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
whatever you really want to put, just put it. That's all.
We'll take last three questions and then we'll wrap up. So we have
Yeah.
Sakshi who's asking, how does one understand the style since you have a very strong style and you have applied it in the right projects even during your freelance years? And how can one understand this during college? How is this working for your studio and did you always want your studio?
या ओके. सो देखो यार, स्टाइल ना मेरी अभी भी स्टाइल नहीं, ऐसा मुझे लगता है. क्योंकि वंस सी आई विल बी वेरी अगेंस्ट स्टाइल व्हेन यू आर यंग इन योर इंडस्ट्री. इवन आई नेवर हैड, मैं सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स के ऊपर बात नहीं कर पाया, बट जो जो प्रोजेक्ट्स के ऊपर बात कर पाया, यू विल सी लाइक अ लिटिल बिट डिफरेंस इन द वे आई हैव डेल्ट विद द प्रोजेक्ट. क्यों स्टाइल नहीं होना चाहिए एज अ विजुअल डिजाइनर टू यू इज इट लिमिट्स योर विंग्स. आप एक बार स्टाइल डेवलप कर लोगे, फिर कैसा होगा? ओनली द ब्रांड्स विच वांट योर स्टाइल ऑन देयर पैकेजिंग, ऑन देयर ब्रांडिंग विल अप्रोच यू. when you don't have a style, when you can adapt to any kind of a style, जैसे हम लोगों ने फट भी कर लिया, पटेश्वर भी कर लिया, वारली भी कर लिया, मेरा पर्सनल स्टाइल भी मैंने कर लिया कलरफुल वाला, या फिर कुछ और भी एक्सपेरिमेंटल कर लिया जो शून्य में वी हैव डन. तो क्या ऑन एनी काइंड ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट्स, एनी काइंड ऑफ क्लाइंट, बिकॉज आई डोंट हैव अ स्टाइल. And the client is very open, the client is more open to that idea because they are like, yeah, he'll develop something new for me, they won't do something repetitive for me. And that is what you should be aiming for as a visual designer. So पहली बात तो स्टाइल के पीछे मत भागो, स्टाइल आपके पास अपने आप आ जाएगा आफ्टर अ फ्यू ईयर्स. मुझे भी ऐसा लगता है कि मेरा अभी जो स्टाइल है वो स्टाइल नहीं है, दैट चेंज अ लॉट आफ्टर सर्टेन ईयर्स. ठीक है. सेकंड इज, डिड आई ऑलवेज वांट अ स्टूडियो? Yes, back in my head I always wanted my studio. uh, I always wanted a slow life. My childhood was in my father's and my mother's village, most of it. Right now, also, my parents live mostly in the rural area, sometimes here. My upbringing was in cities, but I used to be. So I love the slow life. So studio is a fantastic concept for me because I can be in my zone. I can work on my things with my own pace, and I can be as mind-wise as healthy and sorted as I can. It's just I couldn't start it a lot more earlier because I don't come from a very like rich background. Of course, I'm privileged. I'm a middle class person, but उतना capital नहीं था studio start करने का. So I worked hard for 5 years in the industry, saved as much as I can. Uh, then once I knew that okay, this is the right time, that's when I started the studio. But if you feel like now is the right time, just go for it and be just very honest with your work. That's it.
Then we have Idika. She's saying, according to you, how do stories of India differ or are similar to the stories of West? And do you think we need to tweak little like the traditional ways of Indian storytelling to counter the West?
Very interesting question. The thing is, I have traveled heavily across India. I haven't been to any Western country yet. Okay, I've had clients from there. I have friends from there because I was an exchange coordinator for 1 year in NID. So for third year, I was the entire exchange coordinator for all students' years and everything. So I have interacted with almost every student from every country, no matter how big or how small. I've realized one thing because as a kid, also when my parents took me around India, my parents loved traveling heavily. So all the Char Dham, the north, south, east, west, I've traveled everywhere. So of course I have seen every culture. Now because we come from a middle class family, we were not really living in very posh hotels or anything. We were living in places we could afford. That gave us the accessibility to the locals. बिकॉज ये जो फैंसी होटल्स होते हैं वो लोकल्स वाली जगह पे नहीं होते, वो फैंसी जगह पे ही होते हैं. लोकल्स वाली जगह पे नॉर्मल लॉजिंग वाला सिस्टम होता है. सो आई इंटरेक्टेड विद लॉट ऑफ पीपल एंड माइंड यू व्हेन आई से दिस, we have so many stories. यार तो यू आर अ गुजराती राइट?
Yeah,
लेट्स से आई एम अ गुजराती. यार गुजरात में भी इतने डायलॉग्स होंगे ना, इतने डायलेक्ट्स होंगे, इतने रीजंस होंगे कि तुम्हारा खुद का मामा तुमसे अलग डायलेक्ट बोलता हो. ऐसा
yeah,
भी हो सकता है,
true.
ऐसा भी हो सकता है.
Hmm.
ठीक है. एंड दैट इज द ब्यूटी ऑफ आवर कल्चर. ठीक है. अब आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि आपको वही लेके वैसा का वैसा ही छापना है, क्योंकि वो क्या होगा, वो आपको समझेगा.
Hmm.
बट रुतवा जो कि मुझे लेट्स से कि आप व्हाट एक कोई कौन से रीजन से आते हो रुतवा आप?
I come from Kutch specifically.
तो यूर अ कच्ची गुजराती.
Yeah,
ठीक है. तो कच्ची गुजरातीज आर लिटिल डिफरेंट फ्रॉम
from
यहाँ के
yeah,
गुजराती अंदर, राइट? तो अब ऐसा है कि यार लेट्स से इवन इफ आई एम अ गुजराती एंड लाइक कच्ची गुजराती मुझे उनके कल्चर के बारे में कुछ बता रहा है. ठीक है. अब रुतवा कांट टेल द एग्जैक्ट सेम बैकग्राउंड और द एग्जैक्ट सेम स्टोरी ऑफ व्हाट ही हैज हर्ड टू मी इन द सेम टोन, लैंग्वेज, विजुअल वोकैबुलरी. द रीजन फॉर दैट इज उसको जितना हैवी इंफॉर्मेशन मिला होगा उसके दादा दादी से, अंकल आंटी से, मम्मी पापा से, फ्रॉम ऑल द अदर टॉर्च बेयरर्स ऑफ गुजराती कल्चर ऑल्सो,
hmm.
वो मेरे लिए हैवी होगा.
Yeah,
So what he'll have to do is twist that information a little so that it fits in with my vocabulary.
hmm.
Now
True.
I am गुजराती. अब मुझे 90% चीज़ें 80% चीज़ें समझ भी जाएगी कच्ची गुजराती की. बट यार अब तो मैं तो मराठी हूँ. अब मुझे तो बिल्कुल नहीं समझेगा,
Hmm.
राइट। एंड ऊपर से अगर मैं जेनजी हूँ तो मुझे तो थोड़ा सा मॉडर्न ट्विस्ट लगेगा उसमें। रुतवा कांट टेल मी द सेम रीजनल स्टोरीज दैट ही हैज हर्ड, ही विल हैव टू बेंड इट अ लिटिल, ठीक है। वो सेम स्टोरी बेंडिंग जो होता है वो आपको क्लेवरली करना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज यू आर द मॉडर्न जनरेशन, यू नो हाउ टू मेक इट स्पाइसी फॉर योर जनरेशन। यू कांट टेल द सेम स्टोरी और द सेम सॉन्ग, राइट। दैट्स वाई आपका वो एक गाना है जो बीच में बहुत फेमस हुआ था, खलीसी नाम का। आई एम नॉट
हाँ,
वेरी श्योर व्हाट रीजन इट कम्स फ्रॉम,
खलासी, yes.
राइट। आई एम नॉट वेरी श्योर, खलासी, ठीक है। आई एम नॉट वेरी श्योर व्हाट रीजन इट कम्स फ्रॉम, बट ही ब्लेंडेड मॉडर्न रैप with that song and then presented it to people, which became a chart breaker across the world, not just India, mind you.
Hmm.
Same goes for Pasuri.
Vasuri.
Pasuri is actually Pakistani Punjabi, right? Lahori Punjabi, that too,
Yeah.
which might not be same in Karachi Punjabi, by the way, ठीक है।
Hmm.
वो भी चार्ट ब्रेकर था ऑल अक्रॉस इंडिया, क्योंकि मॉडर्न ट्विस्ट दिया गया, ठीक है। दैट इज द आंसर टू योर क्वेश्चन। हमें हमेशा थोड़ा ट्विस्ट डालना पड़ेगा। इसलिए अगर आप देखोगे तो जिस तरह से रामायण भी मैंने शो किया है, इट्स नॉट प्योर फड, इट्स एन अमलगमेशन ऑफ व्हाट वर्क्स फॉर यू गाइस, व्हाट वर्क्स फॉर मी एज माय जनरेशन, एंड व्हाट वर्क फॉर फड,
Pardon.
राइट। तो आपको थोड़ा सा ट्विस्टिंग करना ही पड़ेगा एंशियंट स्टोरीज में, ठीक है। तो कीप दैट इन माइंड, क्योंकि अगर आप वैसे ही कर रहे हो वही सेम चैलेंज हमारे आर्टिसंस भी फेस कर रहे हैं ना। इसलिए तो फर्ड आर्टिस्ट उतना काम नहीं कर रहा है जितना मेरा काम काम कर रहा है, बिकॉज आई एम काइंड ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग द मार्केट राइट
Hmm.
नाउ। वहीं पे आपको आपका नॉलेज लाना पड़ेगा। आई होप दैट आंसर्स।
Yeah. Adding to this again, so if considering that I am third generation and my grandfather was first generation, so during the first generation
या
in Kutch specifically, the most of the first generation moved out to Bombay, and that is why Bombay is filled with
या
Gujaratis right now. So now
या
what happened that time is now the language I speak, the Kutchi I speak, has a tone of Hindi, English, and a more regularized or generalized Kutchi. But whereas if I go to my village
या
now, the Kutchi they speak is very different than what I speak, even the tone and even the wordings they use.
राइट
So that is pure example of
एग्जैक्टली
how over generations where we move to that affects us also, and that is how we'll have to adapt as well.
एग्जैक्टली
But still sticking to the roots
एग्जैक्टली
of Kutch and not forgetting that and completely moving to Bombay and Hindi.
एग्जैक्टली। तो काफ़ी क्लेवर ब्लेंडिंग होना चाहिए।
Hmm.
इट शुड नेवर बी 50-50%, माइंड यू। इट शुड बी 30% द एक्चुअल कल्चरल वन, 30% ऑफ योर ओन अंडरस्टैंडिंग, 30% ऑफ योर बाकी चीज़ों का अंडरस्टैंडिंग, एंड 10% ऑफ द कमर्शियल वैल्यू टू
Commercial
इट,
value.
ठीक है। इसलिए वॉट एवर कमर्शियल प्रोजेक्ट्स यू सी ऑफ आवर स्टूडियो ऑल्सो आर जस्ट 10% कमर्शियल, दे आर काइंड ऑफ एन आर्ट एंड डिजाइन मार्वल ओनली।
Yeah.
अगर मैं उनको फुली कमर्शियल कर लूँ ना यार, तो उसमें मजा नहीं आएगा, आपको वो डब्बा उठाने की इच्छा नहीं होगी। बट कमर्शियल वैल्यू थोड़ा कम ही है, इसलिए उसको ज्यादा है। तो ब्लेंड आपको खुद को समझना चाहिए। आई होप दैट आंसर्स।
Yeah. And lastly, one question which most of the students will have specifically by Mehak is, as a studio, how do you start and finalize a personal project from inspirations to research and execution? Like, how do you choose the right project for your portfolio, or is there even a right project?
दैट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन है। आई फील लाइक सी, हमारे मराठी में देर इज अ म्हण, म्हण मतलब एक लाइक वो होता है ना, क्या होता है उसको, जैसे
Sing,
हाँ सेइंग, यस,
sing.
ठीक है। बाळाचे पाय पाळण्यात दिसतात, ठीक है।
Hmm.
यू वोंट बी एबल टू से इट
Hmm.
बिकॉज उसमें र का प्रोनाउंसिएशन बहुत क्लियर है, दो बार है,
Hmm.
ठीक है। बट बाळाचे पाय पाळण्यात दिसतात मीन्स बच्चे के जो पैर है वो कहाँ जाएगा, वो पालने में ही दिख जाता है। और ये सेइंग एक्चुअली हर लैंग्वेज में होगी होगी, तो उसका सेइंग अलग तरीके का होगा,
हाँ.
बिकॉज लैंग्वेज ऑफ कोर्स। इसका क्या मीनिंग है कि बच्चा आगे जाके क्या करेगा ये आपको बचपन में ही समझ जाता है। माई पेरेंट्स गॉट टू नो दैट आई विल बिकम एन आर्टिस्ट व्हेन आई वाज 5 ओनली, बिकॉज आई वाज रियली इनटू आर्ट, ठीक है। व्हाई आई एम सेइंग दिस इज, कोई भी क्लाइंट, कोई भी ब्रीफ कितना पेनफुल रहेगा ये आपको पहले दो कॉन्वर्सेशन में ही समझ सकता है। तो अभी आपके ऊपर है कि आपको उस क्लाइंट को लेना है कि नहीं लेना है, ठीक है। अगर आपको पैसों की बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है और ऐसा लग रहा है कि चलो क्लाइंट पेनफुल है बट पैसे तो मिल रहे हैं, तो आप क्लाइंट सिर्फ पैसे के लिए लीजिए। बट माई सजेशन वुड बी, नेवर गो इन टू दैट लूप। टॉक टू योर क्लाइंट्स बिफोर फाइनलाइजिंग एनीथिंग। ब्रीफ आते बराबर फाइनल करना नहीं है, दो
Hmm.
तीन कॉल होनी चाहिए। पहला कॉल अंडरस्टैंडिंग योर क्लाइंट, योर देयर ब्रीफ। अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि वो सच में कितनी रिस्पेक्ट करते हैं डिज़ाइन या आर्ट की, वो सच में कितना ज़्यादा विजन को समझते हैं, क्या उनका भी कोई विजन है या इज इट जस्ट मनी ड्रिवन, उसके हिसाब से यू हैव टू मेक योर डिसीजंस. ठीक है.
Hmm.
सो अंडरस्टैंड partnership by partner discuss works very well for your client also. And how, where is the palna here? The palna is the conversations. You need to have 2 3 conversations minimum with your client before you actually onboard with them or with yourself. The same goes for your own personal projects, your pro bono projects for your studio, because we have a lot of pro bono projects like these. So we don't quickly start. We first understand क्या काम करेगा क्या नहीं करेगा, हमारे आइडियोलॉजी क्या है, हमें क्या काम करवाना है नहीं करवाना है. तो ठीक है. तो स्पेंड योर टाइम, टेक योर टाइम. यार मुझे एक बात बताओ, अभी
Hmm.
मैं थोड़ा सा, बिकॉज आई एम ऑल्सो यंगर, आप पहले ही डेट में तो फिक्स नहीं कर लेते हो ना कि आपको इस इंसान से शादी करनी है.
True, yeah.
आप पहले ही कॉन्वर्सेशन में ये फिक्स नहीं करते ना मुझे इस कॉलेज में जाना है मेरी डिग्री
Yeah.
के लिए. राइट. आप पहले ही कॉफी में ये डिसाइड नहीं करते कि मैं हमेशा अभी इसी कैफे में रेगुलर हूँ.
Hmm.
अगर आप कॉफी जैसी चीज के लिए एक जगह पे 3 4 तरह की डिशेस ट्राई करने के बाद फिर फाइनलाइज करते कि आई एम रेगुलर हियर नाउ, तब आप एक इतना बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट करने से पहले जो आपकी लाइफ के 2 3 महीने ले लेगा, क्यों एक कॉन्वर्सेशन से या एक ब्रीफ से डिसाइड करते हैं.
True.
टाइम
Yeah.
लीजिए. ठीक है. एंड अंडरस्टैंड, अंडरस्टैंड क्लाइंट ब्रीफ में ऐसा नहीं होता है कि क्लाइंट ओन्स यू और यू ओन द क्लाइंट. ठीक है. इट्स ऑलवेज अ पार्टनरशिप. लाइक रुतवा, दिस इज योर पॉडकास्ट, दिस इज योर चैनल.
Yeah.
ठीक है. तो द 50% ओनरशिप इज योर्स, बट ऑल्सो दिस इज माई टॉक, सो 50% ओनरशिप इज माई.
Yeah.
राइट. अंडरस्टैंड दैट्स द सेम वेज दैट गोज फॉर अ क्लाइंट एंड यू.
Thank
किसी
you.
भी पॉइंट पे क्लाइंट आपको रूडली बात नहीं कर सकता, आपको रूडली ट्रीट नहीं कर सकता है. किसी भी पॉइंट पे आप बहुत ज्यादा आउट ऑफ फ्रस्ट्रेशन क्लाइंट को कुछ गलत नहीं
नहीं
सुना
बोल
सकते.
सकते. Yeah.
इट्स अ पार्टनरशिप. ठीक है. वो मनी एंड विजन डाल रहे हैं, आप भी आपका विजन, आपका रिसर्च और आपका ये डाल रहे
That's right.
हैं.
Yeah.
यू नीड टू गो हैंड इन हैंड. और वो समझने के लिए कि आप कितना अच्छे से हैंड इन हैंड जा सकते हो, यू नीड टू हैव कॉन्वर्सेशंस व्हिच रुतो, इफ यू रिमेंबर, वी हैड इन द कार व्हेन यू guys were talking,
Yeah. Dropping your
and that
heads.
gave us an understanding that you want to do the show with me and I want to do the show with you.
Hmm.
That's the same thing that goes for your client also. Spend time, 2 3 कॉल कर लीजिए. अगर कोई क्लाइंट बोल रहे नहीं नहीं जल्दी चाहिए, दैट्स योर फर्स्ट रेड फ्लैग.
Red flags.
कोई भी चीज़ अर्जेंट नहीं होती है. ठीक है. So it's fine. Take your time, finalize the client when you feel that is right, and when you see that the client is right, and then इतना smooth process होगा ना, and that's why we could do so many projects, no? That's why we could pull off so many projects because we only pick clients which understand us as much as we understand them.
Hmm.
I think that's it. I hope that helps.
Yeah, we'll end this, and it was amazing having you. The thing we spoke about with the West Wala party, I am from Kutch and I moved to Bombay, and there is two different parts. So the question was asked by Idika.
Yeah.
She's just
Hmm.
adding on to the thing that after hearing what you said, she thinks that there's a heavy chance of
Yeah.
distortion because the change in way we represent it as a person.
Hmm.
So I guess you already answered that, and you thinking of the other person as well. And yeah, so I guess it was a great session, and hope everyone liked it. If I've missed any questions
Yeah.
or stuff, you all can DM us on Instagram, and we'll try to answer those questions as well. Due to a time constraint, we cannot move this ahead, but yeah. So thank you for having you all. And if you have any suggestions for speakers you want, any specific topics you want us to speak upon, please DM us and we'll try and get that organized next time. So thank you, Gajesh, for doing this with us. And we'll try and also to mention Gajesh started field visits on his studio recently. So if you are somewhere near Maharashtra, Pune, Nashik, you want to visit his studio, please go to his Instagram and register. Also check out the song they put out recently. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye, guys. So yeah, everyone who came in, if you all have any more questions, I'll just get that answered now. One thing Radish asked is, can you share this presentation? Yeah, as soon as I received it from Gajesh, I'll share it with you. Um, yeah, and drop in a follow on Instagram, and we will surely reach out to every one of you. And if you want the notes and PDF from this session, go and register on the link in our bio. So I'll get your mail ID and I'll mail it to everyone. So